Hey guys, Evergreen Foundations is evolving. That's the whole theme of our community, right? Evolution under the five pillars of evolution: mindset mastery, body vitality, lifelong learning, connection and contribution, and purposeful living. And today, as I'm going to have guests with our new Pillar Talk, this inspired podcast style interviews that we're going to be doing live here in the community every Wednesday. The times will vary with the guests, but we will do them every Wednesday. The summit kind of turned me and Dinka into podcasters. So here we are. And we have so many amazing guests in this community to feature that I was like, why not do it every week? So here we are. And today we're going to focus on body vitality, overall health, wellness, brain development, which is, my thing with the Better Brain Project, my other little project here on Skool. And today I have an amazing guest, Susan Andrien. We just talked about this and I still did that. Susan Andrien, who is a somatic coach, has been a therapist, is a therapist. Forest therapy, I think, was your answer to your first question when you joined here. And I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. Now the forest just gained a forest therapist. Susan, it's been wonderful to get to know you since you've joined our community. Why don't you let us all know a little bit more about what you do and who you are?
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me on. It's been, I've only been on Skool a short time, but it's an exciting place and what you guys have going on and Evergreen Foundation has been really motivating. So as you said, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. Um, Primarily, most of my work had been in schools for a long time, and K-12 schools, doing trauma work, and so my first day as a therapist was September 11th, 2001,
Wow.
and I live in Oakland, California. So Oakland, is an amazing place and lots of like great food, great culture, great people, but there's also a lot of trauma and a lot of intergenerational trauma. It was kind of one of the ground zero for the crack epidemic in the 90s. And so um, coming into Oakland as a young therapist and working in the schools, starting on that really, big day, I learned really quickly that what I had learned in grad school about sitting in an office, 50-minute sessions, really did not apply to the kids and the families that I were working with. They were still in high levels of chronic stress. They were experiencing violence daily. It was just a lot for that community. And, in the 6 years that I worked at the middle school that I was there, uh, we had a couple kids murdered. We had a staff member that had been murdered. It was really an intense, like,
Yeah.
dive in the deep end
Yeah.
kind of experience. And during that time, there was a lot of amazing things that happened too. I got the honor of being in relationship with kids and families and being invited into community. And what I learned really quickly is that healing has to happen in relationship. It has to happen in context of community, and that um, for communities that are experiencing this high level of distress, that 15-minute sessions are just kind of arrogant to think that that's what's going to help navigate that. So we took kids camping, I took kids backpacking, I took kids to the beach, I did art, we did family holiday meeting, we did, toy drives and just a lot of really unconventional therapeutic ways of supporting kids in trauma. So I did that in different roles, sometimes working for the district, sometimes working for the county, sometimes working for a nonprofit for a long time. And then the last 9 years of my role in a system was that, I was working for a district, without saying the name of the district, and then, that we were in COVID, so COVID was just, like, kicking our ass, really. It was kicking the families' asses, it was really hard, but then there were these pockets of things that were happening. Teachers pivoted in a way that was just incredible. What I saw teachers do during that time with like learning Zoom and learning how to be creative, I was really inspired. And then there were a couple of pockets of programs, like we had these hub learning programs, one in Oakland where they would pick the kids up in the morning at their house, bring them in a van, bring them to a pod right? There were 4 kids, 1 adult, and they would be in a room together on the Zoom. So the teacher would be teaching on Zoom, but they would have a supportive adult with them. And these were our highest need kids. And then at noon, they get off Zoom, they get in the van, and they go out into nature. So, and it was incredible. These were our most high need struggling kids, and all of a sudden their academic growth was happening, their mood was better. Like things were really improving for this small pocket of highly vulnerable kids who had this small one-on-one experience with adults. So, and nature was definitely my escape during COVID, and nature had been a part of my clinical work from the beginning. So during COVID, I signed up. I got a scholarship to an organization in Portugal called the Forest Therapy Hub. They had been around just for a few years at that point. Um, and I trained with them online. I'm one of the trainers at the Forest Therapy Hub in Portugal, and we now have trainers, and we have forest bathing guides and forest therapy practitioners on every continent. And there is, I forget, it's growing every day, but it's this amazing organization that has worked with we're working with, partnering with University of Derby, University of British Columbia. There's a new partnership in Korea and a new partnership in China, where the Forest Therapy Hub looks at the science behind nature connection, what aspects of nature connection provide the highest level of healing or wellness. And so, if you're not familiar with where forest bathing, the modern day forest bathing, came around in the 80s, where Japanese businessmen were showing up at the hospital with stress-related disorders. These were corporate, high-powered corporate folks that had hypertension, high blood pressure,
Yeah.
all the stress-related things. And the doctor said, "You know what you need is to go spend some time bathing in the nature." So they gave a prescription to these corporate Japanese businessmen to
That's
spend time in nature. Yeah.
yeah.
And they're all, guess what? Their high blood pressure went down, their hypertension
Yep.
went down, like everything was better. So that's where modern day forest bathing started. And now there's this huge growing body of science and research that shows all of the ways in which nature connection and time in nature
Yeah.
improve. So I did that. And then I got trained with Dr. Bruce Perry, who is, I don't know if you know Dr. Bruce Perry, but he was a neuroscientist who then became a psychiatrist. And he was like, wait a minute, what I know about how the brain works is not what you're teaching me. This was, 35 years ago.
Yeah.
And then so he developed this model that looks at like windows of sensitivity and how our brain organizes, and how to assess how the brain organized based on the experiences that we've had, and then what are the interventions that are going to support reorganizing for resilience and relationship. So we look at sensitized stress response systems and sensitized relational um, interaction. So, and how do we assess that and recognize ways to provide intervention that allow whoever we're working with to be able to, we're targeting the specific part of the way the brain is organized. And then I was trained with this, you could tell I'd love to learn. So I
Yeah.
just go
No,
to all
no,
these places.
yeah.
And now I'm currently training with Strozzi Institute, which is, well, kind of one of the international trainers for somatics. There was a lot of grounding in Aikido and body, and so we're looking at things from a somatic, like understanding how the body and the wisdom of the body plays into the way in which we interact in the world. And so from those are the kind of the core trainings that I was like, okay, how do I bring this together? Like that's a lot. And there's like all these roots that, what is that? How does that make sense for me for Hope Reimagined? So I left Oakland, and after the pandemic, like many districts, they had to decide what they were going to do with their resources, and they decided to cut mental health and put it into academics. And so I would have gone from supporting 19 schools, which was already like really too much, to supporting 50 schools.
Whoa.
And I decided that it was time for me to step out of that system and start Hope Reimagined. So Hope Reimagined started in 2022. I'm a LLC. We provide school-based mental health to 6 schools. I do leadership coaching and team coaching for majority of my clients are admin in school districts, but I'm also branching out now. I'm working with a couple of counties and some private schools, and also um, some leaders in other fields, and developed this model called the Neurosomatic Integration Framework that looks at both the neuroscience um, for understanding, and then nature for healing, and then embodiment through somatics. And so building all those together. I talked a lot, so you might have some questions.
Oh, well, I'm here for it. That's why, honestly, that's why these interviews are so easy because all I have to ask is like, "Hey, who are you?" And then all our interesting people, they can tell me so much things. And yeah, honestly, I really love the nature aspect. Like I'm big into grounding and being outside and being in one with the nature. And like I've really gotten in that the last few years. I'm curious with the forest bathing. Do you do that in like a group? Do you do that in one-on-ones with kids sometimes? Is there like a blend of that?
Yeah, I do it. I do it some with kids and nature connection with kids, but most of like the forest bathing, I've done it with adolescents too, and groups of adolescents, mostly groups. Most of the folks that I take forest bathing are adults,
Okay.
and many of them educators or therapists themselves who are looking for self-care and regulation. And so I had a group of like a 6-week group for educators where we met twice a week at different natural places and lead them. Um, and then I offer a monthly forest bathing walk in the Bay Area that people just like Airbnb experience, ecotourism,
Yeah, yeah.
not really contracted. And if you are in the Bay Area or visiting the Bay Area, I offer those once a month in the Redwoods here. And that's like a 2-hour just experience of in the forest therapy model.
And
Um,
not that, what does
oh,
that
go
look
ahead.
like? Like a forest bathing session when, what is the process there?
Yeah. So we arrive, and then I'm the first part of the forest bathing experience is very guided. So we start by just getting into our body, sensory awareness. What do and so I'm doing a lot of the almost like a guided meditation. There's a lot of me talking and helping you notice things. And then as the walk goes on, I'm leading, and then I'm giving prompts and sending you out to experience the forest on your own. And then we come back to circle. I give a prompt, we share the circle, and then another prompt to go out and experience, and then we come back. So depending on the length of the walk, a walk can be anywhere from like 15 minutes, which is mostly just a short nature connection, to 2.5 to 3 hours. And so depending on the length of time I have with folks, like I find 2 hours to be a real sweet spot, um, in terms of enough time to like really get to flow state. And so the process is designed to help sensory awareness through your body in relationship and connection with nature. And then we give prompts then allow you to they're invitations. Everything's an invitation. So sometimes people are like, "Oh, yeah, I'm actually really feeling this something else that I wanna do during this time." And I people go off and have their like, take a nap with the tree or have
Yeah.
a conversation with the tree. But the goal is to get to flow state. And so, I don't know if you're aware of flow
Yep.
theory.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
The
so
theta state, that flow that we all search for.
yeah. Yeah, and so what I have found through the model that the Forest Therapy Hub has created is that they've really designed this structure of the sequencing of the types of activities that we offer in a particular order to really maximize the flow state. And then we come back together. So it's both social because there's a nature connection activity, then we come together and we do a little prompt reflection, and then there's another nature send people off to do their own individual nature. Sometimes it's a pair, paired up. So, like, I'd love to do this activity called camera and photographer. And so one person's the camera and one person's the photographer, and the camera closes their eyes, and the photographer brings them to look at something and then says, "Open your eyes." And so they're sharing
Yeah.
the vision. So that's an example of an activity that you might do with a group.
I think my ass needs a bath in the forest, to be honest. And just
Yeah.
sounds great.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
what the research has shown is that spending 120 minutes a week in nature has the highest impact on your wellness. I mean, you can do more than that, and it can be, but the like return on investment starts to sort of wane after 120 minutes a week.
well, and they also want us to think that it's like everybody thinks it's super hard to like take care of yourself, get out in nature and move your body and like drink some water. Like,
Right.
well, yeah, and it's this big thing that's marketed like it's a big deal. It really That's why I try to start every day. Like I go outside, try to take like a big deep breath of all the smells. If the sun's up, I look at the sun. I'm up early, so it's usually dark, and I'm outside with my dog. So I just listen to like the sounds and really take in everything around me. And starting my day, since I've done that now, I always feel like a different energy coming
Yeah.
back into like that first thing you got to start. So yeah, I mean, nature is just it's an underrated medicine, people. It's medicine. Like go
It's
outside.
medicine. It is absolute, and it's medicine that's backed up by science and research, right? Like,
Yes.
that hospitals now, when you see all those pictures of nature in hospitals, it's because the research and science has shown that when you have access to nature, and now a lot of hospitals have gardens and
Yeah,
areas for people to
like
go in.
botanical areas and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
botanical areas, and what they found is that recovery from surgery, or, it's not gonna cause your cancer, it's not gonna keep you from doing but it is preventative, and it will increase your body's ability to do its own natural healing. And so if you've had surgery and you have access to nature, your recovery time will probably be less than if you don't.
And that's so and it's backed like you said, it's backed by science, like, we know this, yet
Mhm,
sometimes we still just, like, avoid just, like, putting down our devices and being outside, and that's why I love
mhm,
this idea. I have to do this one day, like, I'm all for this, like, I love this idea of forest bathing and getting into that flow state. We get
mhm,
so caught up in, like, go, 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 rat race, I need to do this. You got your
mhm.
family, your processes, we have everything is instant gratification these days. Like
Yep,
putting stuff down and getting out into the woods. That's why
yeah.
I've been looking forward to this talk since I met you, really, because I was like, "Oh, nature therapy, like that sounds
Yeah.
awesome." What kind of effects
And so
have you?
just of the forest, but just to give a little, like, separate, there's forest bathing and there's forest therapy. And so
Uh,
forest bathing is a nature-based well-being practice, kind of like what you were saying in the morning, and these monthly forest bathing walks that I offer, it's
yeah,
not like it's therapeutic and it's wellness, but it's not therapy. And then there's forest therapy, which is like folks that are coming for anxiety, depression, they're coping with something specific, and then we're using nature as a co-therapist in the healing, and they look different, but they're related. They're all grounded in the same kind of core concepts of nature, um, but forest therapy is a directed, so I'll be doing a little bit more directing and a little bit more like, how does this relate to your depression?
yeah.
Or, like, what did you or mood check, um
And with all your experience coming from like you said, you were in like inner city Oakland, lots of generational trauma that keeps getting passed on, and a lot of well, the saddest thing about that is I came from that, and it's not a little bit, and it's generational trauma doesn't get broken until someone goes like, "Oh, I'd love to change these habits so I don't pass it
Yeah,
on to my kids," and it's one of the
yeah,
hardest things. And to
yeah,
wrap this into a question, um, so how have you seen the difference of like breaking generational trauma,
mhm,
healing breakthroughs? How have you seen the difference from maybe like your traditional office
mhm.
visits with people to what you do now with the more detailed forest therapy? And then we'll get into, or you can get into like your neurosomatic integrated framework too. Like, what's the
Yeah.
difference there between traditional to now what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a really important question, and I think there's a lot of folks out there trying to figure out how do we break these
Yeah.
intergenerational trauma, and we know a lot more than we used to know. I think from the somatic perspective, we talk about conditioned tendencies, kind of like what you were saying about habits, but conditioned tendencies are automatic responses, usually under pressure, and so we've developed those. We develop them because they help us, right? They're protective. They were things that were supportive in navigating complex traumatic experiences, and then they unintentionally reinforce the generational trauma, right? We kind of they become part of like our automatic responses to situations. So I think with forest and in the model, and maybe this might be helpful time to share some of it. At each stage, it's what's the role of play, what's the role of nature, and what's the role of embodiment. And so with nature, nature provides nervous system regulation. When we lead it in forest therapy, it's an amazing reflector back of the resilience of nature. And so we can make a lot of connections with what folks are seeing and both what's happening internally in their body and in the relationships in their lives and give some spaciousness. So this is the neurosomatic integration framework, and it's rooted in science, guided by nature, embodied in practice. And so when we look at things, regulate, relate, reflect, and reimagine, I do this by, let's see, on the right slide. So there's science. We look at the neuroscience, we look at somatic embodiment, and then also the learnings from nature. So nature's integrated into all of our work. I'm going to skip down here. So the foundational belief is that we have to practice before insight. And so this is what is different than traditional um, mental health or like cognitive behavioral or pathology, is that what we're really looking at is we're all from the somatic perspective, we're always practicing something. So, how can we identify what we're longing for and what we want our life to be, and then have practices that help us move in that direction, right? And then there's regulation. It's not calm. It's the capacity to like be able to identify what is happening in our body at any given time, what emotions or moods are present, and then when we have center or regulation around, we can make more choice in those moments. And nature naturally helps people's nervous system become regulated. It also provides metaphors and awareness and calmness. And then there are things like the science that's available to us in nature. So, like near running water or moving water, there's negative ions which change the magnetic like energy in our body. So it's why we feel so good when we're near a waterfall or the ocean, is that there's a lot of negative ions in the air, and it actually changes our physical experience of the environment. Um, or metropenes. So in evergreens, metropenes are the chemicals in the air that come off of trees, the scents, and those provide a lot of regulation for our system. Then there's relationship, which is a part of forest bathing and forest therapy because we circle up
Yeah.
in between each thing. And then play is a huge part of the model for the somatic integration model because we do play therapy, but we also really believe in the power of playfulness, of like authentic, interactive, flexible, um, and learning and growing through play and joy, through dance, through movement, through art, through creativity. And then nature is this co-regulator that I was talking about, and embodiment bridges it. So at each of the circles, we also follow a decolonizing foundation, so really understanding the impact of colonization on folks. Um, but this model, right, we could just revisit this. It's a spiral. So we're constantly revisiting, like, oh, I'm feeling pretty dysregulated. Can I find my center? Can I breathe into that? Oh, what am I actually feeling? And how is that impacting the relationships around me? but you know what? I'm still feeling really dysregulated. I think I'm gonna go take a walk outside and be with the trees or be with nature, or I'm gonna use these skills that I've learned to regulate my body. And then once you get into reflection, this is where intergenerational trauma can be disrupted, is when we have enough foundational regulation and enough healthy relationships and connections that we can start to reflect on what is our conditioned tendencies? How are they barriers to what we're longing for? How are they getting in the way of what's really important to me? Or how are they making me sick in my body? So, this reflection can only come, this awareness and integration and understanding can only come after I'm regulated and feel connected or boundaried. That's when we can start to reimagine what's possible. And we're revisiting this over and over and over again, and you can use it in lots of different settings.
Coming from someone that is no stranger to trauma responses and trying to rewire them, and
Mhm.
it seems like an amazing way to go about it. And I love the structure, and I love your emphasis on play and regulation, and like we can't just go into stuff so stringent like I have to fix this problem. It doesn't work. Like it doesn't work when we have to fix something. We have to allow ourselves to heal, to grow, to nurture a new response,
Mhm.
neuropathic response, right? And that's not just a nope, I don't want to act this way anymore and I'm not gonna. It
Right.
doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah.
Work
Wouldn't
that
that be
way. It's
great
like,
if we could just say, "Oh, you know what? I don't wanna act like that any I'm done."
yeah, I'm tired of responding like that. I'm not gonna anymore. Like, man, I would be a lot of things easier in my life, I tell you that. So I love, and I also love the aspect that, I mean, we're a podcast that's based off of school, so I got to bring it back there all the time. I also love the aspect that what you do really translates into how a lot of people run communities and have schools, and you have
Mhm.
fun, you grow, you heal. All those bases of what you do fit perfectly into school. How have you made that transition of since you've started a community?
Yeah, it was not in my plan to make a school and community. It was sorta happened. I had a podcast a few years ago called The Awakening Educator. We have about 64 episodes. It was really great. And then we paused just because it was a good friend and colleague, Dr. Megan Sweet. It was a great experience, but we just it kind of ran its course, and we're not great at marketing, and we're not great at like we're just like great at building all this great content, but nobody was really seeing it.
Yeah.
uh, and
Yes.
then Yeah. So then we had planned on relaunching a new podcast called Rooted in Healing. And what when I sat back and really thought about, okay, do I have the capacity for this right now? Like, what is how is this aligned with my purpose? And really, can I give my partner, who I was gonna engage in this, like the full support to make a podcast really work? And decided no, but I had already created the school community to accompany the podcast. So I was like, "Oh, I'll just, like, keep it going." But it's kind of a little addictive.
Yes, yes, it is.
And
Yes, it is.
and it's been really great to have folks come on. So now I've been doing centering practices, just live, jumping on live and practicing in community, which was one of the things that I'm really loving about it is like, oh, it's time, in our somatic training, I'm trying to center 5 times a day, in addition to some other things. But centering practice is this centering in dignity and centering in length, depth, and purpose. And so while I'm in this training, and I'm about 2/3 of the way through, I'm trying to do this 5 times a day, and hopefully I'll continue it afterwards. So I'm like, oh, I could just go live and see. I have some of my somatic friends on Skool, and they join me. So that's been really great. And I am an approved continuing education provider for the state of California Board of Behavioral Sciences. So Hope Reimagined just got approved, I don't know, a few months ago. So I had planned on doing another like Thinkific or some other thing for these courses. And And as I was just playing around in school, it's like, "Oh, this is a real vibrant community, and it feels so much more rich and, um, not organic, right? This is this organically growing place." And then I found you guys, and I jumped in. And it was sort of when I tapped into Evergreen that it really sort of like blew up a bit. And I'm
Yeah,
still only at like 40 members. It's not like I'm not like I'm blown up, but just what feels possible in terms of connecting with people outside of the swamp that has become social media that I hate.
I love it. I love that you said that because that's the difference, people. Like Skool, a lot of people that are just on social media, like I post about it all the time to like crickets, right? And I have, I don't know, almost 5,000 followers across platforms, maybe more. And I post about it all the time. I'll find members, but nothing crazy because social media sucks you into this swamp, political, everybody's fighting, everybody's like just in this thing. Skool,
Mhm,
the
mhm.
only way to describe Skool is it's a skill sharing platform. We
Yeah,
all go into other communities. We learn things from each other. I mean, look, me and you are right now, we're talking about this. And like you're teaching me stuff that I take and do in my community Better Brain Project, where I talk about
yeah,
brain, gut health and nutrition. And then there's so
mhm,
many people I could name, especially in the last month. I can name like 50 people that have touched my life and grown me by just talking to them, by just adding
yeah.
value of what their genius zone is. And the Evolution Summit, I mean, we have 33 calls all of January. Every single time, I'm leveled up as a human being just by talking to someone for 90 minutes. And
Mhm.
that's cool. Not, oh man, I go on social media for like 5 minutes and I get angry. I'm like
Yeah,
stressed. Hold
I
up.
know. I know. It's really and so that was that sort of and I have to figure out the balance of it because I'm overextended as just if I'm sure you can tell from the things I've been saying. I have a lot going on, but I do and not but and I see school as this place that I think can be the center of a lot of, like, the long-term, um, collective, deeper space, where people can drop in the way it serves them or not, or find information, and so, um, my goal is to build the CEU part, like, I see that as the paid part, the part that is gonna
Yeah.
bring in some revenue. Um, peop continuing every therapist in the country needs to have a certain number depending on what state you're in, needs to have a certain number of continuing education credits for their license renewal. So, like, in California, it's 36 credits every 2 years. So that's 36 hours of continuing education every 2 years that you need to get. So my plan is to have some really high value continuing education content that people are going to really want that will meet their legal requirements and then have all this other content and ways of sharing that don't cost anything at all and that are free and available to the community. And then the I am looking at a so I do a lot of coaching. I'm a somatic coach. I have individual somatic leadership coaching clients. And so I'm looking at having for my private practice coaching clients and I'll have another area that will just have videos of practice that they can use as a auxiliary to their individual coaching with
Right.
me.
And I love how you have the different levels because that's what's working. Collaboration and then growing your value. Because I was explaining this to somebody the other day. When somebody walks into a community, they open up the doors and enter. Uh, a lot of people they don't want that. Like, hey, I can work with you one on one and change your life. They're going to be like, whoa, I just walked in your house, right? So you give them that free value, the threads. Show up on some live videos, some groups, teach them what they don't know, and then progress them up to that. Now you're doing like group somatic therapy. Now you're doing one on
Mhm.
one, and that's what's really working is that you bring someone in to your party, to your yard, to your home with what your community is, and you really nurture them to where what they need. Maybe you have someone that come in and they're like, "Hey, I've been doing this for years, and I really need more. I need more credits. So how do I do that?" And they'll just progress them right up to that. So I love how you
Yeah,
have that natural progression, just in how you work.
yeah, yeah. And I would say that. The one other key thing that might be of interest to folks is like the arc of transformation. So if in the free area, I'm going to be adding a lot of stuff into this community. I am a deep, deep believer in community healing, community connection. Like things need to happen in community. Community is like, and part of the way that our modern culture has evolved has like disrupted the way community has historically supported us. And we're at a time that there's so much division. The Strozzi Institute's somatic transformation is this arc of transformation. So I see I'm looking at the Skool as supporting like that entry place. And then if somebody is really interested in more intentional transformation, like I have a longing, I'm here. For example, I I really want to build my school community, but I don't know how to do it. I don't have my confidence. I'm worried about it. And you want coaching to go to help you identify what are the things internally in you that are getting in the way of you becoming and being who you want to be.
Do you see, because I know my answer, but I'm curious on you. Do you see that as like one of the biggest problems that we put these barriers up for ourselves that we don't believe that we can heal or be better or change or what? I don't like to use the term be better because that implies you were worse and none of us are worse.
Yeah.
We just have growing to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, Hank, when he was talking this morning about being and doing, and I didn't get to see the whole thing, but because I had a meeting, but I'm going to go back and finish watching it. And he was talking about, and I train a lot of clinicians and therapists, and when they're new and they're so nervous, I'm like, don't worry about it. Just be there with them. Just be where with them. So I think I in the way that I understand the neuroscience and what happens in our bodies, right? And how we develop and windows of sensitivity, right? We create ways of navigating the world that are protective from a very early age. And so those barriers, they're like as you said at the beginning of our conversation, they're sort of hardwired in. They're pre-conscious. And so um when I am given an opportunity and then my conditioned tendency shows up of like, you're not good enough for this, or it's not real, or and they tend to fall into a few different buckets of avoidance, collapse, fight, those barriers that are deeply rooted in our body and our tissue. And I think sometimes, so when we think about it from the different spaces, we can think and know what we need to do. And this is kind of what you were saying, like, oh, you got to do that. You got to show up differently. When my kid's showing up in this way, when my kid is like acting a certain way, refusing to take the garbage out or like yelling at me or having an upset and it triggers, it's a grab in me. And I revert to that, like, well, if I ever talked to my father that way, I would have got a crack across the face, and I can't believe that and then are all those things show up, um, and they have us then responding, not aligned with our values. So we're often reacting under pressure in ways that are not aligned with our values, because in Dr. Bruce Perry's work in the neuroscience, all functioning is state dependent. So when you are in a state of activation, that's when the conditioned tendencies and the automatic responses show up because we've lost access to the prefrontal cortex and the thinking part of the brain that says, oh, but I wanted to be different and I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
But here I am. And so the barriers that are automatic that get in the way, I do see that we're always practicing something. And I'm working towards practicing ways that are different so that what we talk about transformation is being able to show up in a different way aligned with our values under the same old pressure. So,
Love how you put it that way.
yeah,
Under the same old pressure. Nothing that's not gonna change. Our
that's not going to
responses
change.
are the way we perceive it, the data that comes into us, that's what it's not gonna change. So, yeah, I love that. Well
Yeah.
said.
And it lives in our tissue. And so it takes like 3,000 practices before you embody something new.
Well, I had a mentor when I first got into wellness coaching, anything. And a mentor, podcaster, Rob Dial, the mindset mentor. He had a program that many of us in this community, Hank Miner, I could name a bunch of them, Dave Layden, my partner. That's where a lot of us met, and he taught us something. He did like a master class on rewiring the brain, and it changed my
Mhm,
life. It actually turned into his book, Level Up by Rob Dial. And but anyway, he was talking about theta state, right? Flow state. We brought that up
mhm,
earlier. But all of
mhm,
us are in theta state from ages 0 to 6 years old. And everything that we take in, every sight, sound, reaction,
mhm.
everything gets stored. And then
Yep,
after 6 years old, all of that, that's when now we have to rewire that stuff. Now we have
right.
to go back and redo that stuff. Made
Yeah.
me feel like a terrible father when I learned this. And I was like, oh no, now I gotta help my kids like
Mhm.
rewire stuff that I taught them. Like, but
Yeah, yeah, mine too, yeah, all of us, right? We're
yeah.
always it's the good enough I'm trying to be the good enough parent. Um, yeah, Bruce Perry has a great video. It was is I always love watching this video and showing it, but he has a video of a neural network forming of an actual like in the Petri, under the magnifying glass. And you see like and it takes a lot of energy to form that. And you see they become wired and when we're talking wired, they're seamlessly connected. So, for example, when you hear the word dog, right, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The word is inseparable
Mm,
from what a dog is.
yeah.
They are one and the same. But you had to learn that. You had to learn that this is a dog. And that took a lot of energy, right? Dog, 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 dog. And then you see, okay, now I know what a dog is, and now I have to learn, oh, what's a cat? Is a cat the same? So that branches off. So that early years are creating those foundational, and then you can expand on that. But once that is created, you don't uncreate. You just create new neural networks. And the more you use the new neural networks, the sort of overgrown and less active the other ones can, and then they sort of die off. But it takes a very, very long.
I love that analogy too, because it's a lot like now imagine you're 40 years old and you're like, oh, yeah, by the way, we don't call dogs that anymore. Imagine changing every time you see a dog. You're going to think dog, you're going to say dog, you're going to feel dog. And now,
Mhm.
oh, no, you got to change that. That is not
Yep.
going to be an overnight thing. And I think
Yep.
that's a lot when we're trying to change behaviors in ourselves. I think we think we have to force it so much and we have to like, we have to change this.
Yeah.
We don't give ourselves enough space. I think was really touching on that today. We'll give us enough space and presence to actually allow that to happen. It takes
Mhm.
time to create new neuropathic habits. I think as human beings, we're really hard on ourselves. You probably see that
Yep.
a lot in what you do.
Yep.
And we're like,
Yep.
why isn't this changing yet? Well, because it takes repetition and repetition and repetition. And learning that in my own life was what helped me really grow and heal from years and years of trauma was I can give
Mhm.
myself time. I might still act a certain way or do a certain thing.
Yep.
Now, but I'm working on it every day. I bet you a year from now, it's going to be so much easier. And I have a
Yep.
daughter on the spectrum, and it's my mission to show her that emotional regulation and emotional control are possible no matter what. And I
Mhm.
did not know that as a father, and sometimes still don't.
Yeah, and I think the importance in what you just said is that emotional regulation is possible and available, and it doesn't mean like I'm happy or I'm calm, right? It means that I have enough awareness in my body and spaciousness to be able to be like, oh, I am feeling angry. I know this because my heart is racing and my palms are sweaty. Like I have enough awareness and I can recognize what's happening in my body and my mind, and then I can make a choice. So I'm regulated. I'm not angry. I'm not sad or upset. I'm just able to synthesize that information, be aware of it, and then make choice from that space of like, okay, I'm really angry, and that means I'm gonna take a break or I'm gonna use my coloring, or I'm gonna go be with a tree, or I'm gonna put some music on, but I have enough awareness in my body to be able to make that choice. And so, I think sometimes when we talk about regulation, a lot of people talk about we associate it with, "Oh, I'm calm and I'm in Zen state and everything is great." But that's not always that doesn't that's great. It's we all need that in our lives.
In reality,
And
we're just doing stuff so we don't lose our shit.
right, exactly. It's the practice so that when the pressure comes, right, so this is why we do practices, and this is why practice is such an important part of neurosomatic integration and life, is that and, like, forest bathing and forest therapy and meditation and dance and music and art and eating well. These are all things that support our capacity to then, under pressure, take new actions that are aligned with our values.
I did it my whole life. Like when I was a very like manic personality, a lot of like blowing up and like I'm right. I'm gonna prove myself right, right. And like everyone like breathe, breathe. And your whole life you're like, oh yeah, right. Until you learn to nasal breathe for emotional regulation, you don't understand that. That's simple.
Mhm.
When telling you just take a breath, please take a breath.
Yeah. And you can't learn it in a state of activation,
Oh,
right? You have to learn how to breathe
when
as
it's
a
even when
practice,
you don't have
when
to.
it's yeah, when it's accessible to you. So then that way, when you are e either regulation and somatics, we call it a grab, when you were grabbed, which I think is a really, good somatic description of things, that we have access to the to breath, or we have access to centering, or we have access to like, okay, I'm going to look at that tree and I'm going to look from the top and I'm going to follow the branches down. We have access to those things in the moment that we're feeling really activated because you've practiced it when you weren't activated.
Yes. Mm. And I always tried to do the like, "Oh, there's a fire, now let's take a fire extinguisher." Too late kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Where I learning, resets. Cold water to the face was a big one that I did when I was first trying to,
Mhm,
like, learn emotional regulation,
mhm.
is I would just, like, put my head in a sink of cold
Yep,
water and come out hold my breath until I couldn't, and then, "Oh, but my mood's instantly different. Okay."
yeah,
And remembering to do that when you're in those moments, it's you're not gonna do it unless you do it when you're just feeling great, and
yep,
learning that really helped me.
yep.
Your school community, Hope Reimagined Rooted, what can somebody expect when they walk through the doors right now and what
Yeah.
they're gonna receive?
They're gonna receive their community is growing, and so we're growing and ideally, they come in and they receive, but they also are their voice is a contributing factor. It's a really important piece, you know that in Evergreen, the more you contribute, um, they are gonna find not every day, but as many days as I can, what's your soundtrack? So, like, put a song in that you're feeling, so things from that to you go in the classroom. um, there is the intro to the neurosomatic integration, but there'll be growing CEU offerings there and forest bathing. I also offer open to everybody. I don't know how often yet. We're figuring out the cadence, but at least once a month, an online guided forest bathing walk, which means you take your phone, you go out somewhere where you have reception in nature, and
I'm
I
here for this.
guide. Yeah, so I'll guide you on a forest bathing walk in nature wherever you are, as long as you have reception.
Nice.
Um,
I'm in your community, so I'll keep my tabs on that.
yeah, and then
I don't live in
centering.
California though, so pick a little couple months down the road, I might show up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I when I was trained at the Forest Therapy Hub, it was winter, it was January, people all over the world. I was in California, so and it was, early in the morning here because, you had to
Okay,
accommodate all the time zones. But we had plenty of people that were out there in their parkas in the all snow doing, ice, snow,
yeah.
uh, nature connection. So there's offers of at least once a month, probably more, with an hour-long guided forest bathing, experience in your neighborhood, or in your world, wherever you are in the world. And then, I randomly will say, I'm going to get log on to do centering, and I'll just log on, go live, and you can come in and I will be guiding you in a centering practice. I may add some other somatic practices to that, like rowing or which are just these practices that help with your body. Um, yeah, and we hope to offer some more forest bathing.
Yeah.
I have several of my team. So I have a team of 4 full-time clinicians and then 3 part-time folks that work for Hope
Well,
Reimagined.
nice.
Um, and 3 of them are trained forest bathing guides too. Um, so sometimes they, if once we right now I'm the only admin, so we're not quite there yet. We gotta get up to a place where it makes sense to move up to the $99 a month
Yeah.
and bring more admins on.
Well,
But
or
my
for my
plan
dad.
is to have weekly forest bathing offerings guided by different members of the team.
That's amazing. And it's the experience. Like, I've already been in your community. I love the things that you talk about and stuff, but you really offer an experience because you're
Yeah,
not only going into a school community. Now, some of the groups, you're going to be going out in the forest in your community while you're connected with others from all over the world. So I absolutely love that uniqueness of what you get when you go into your community. And obviously, 40 members, you're growing, you're new to this. Your members and everybody that walks in the door is going to cultivate what it means to be in Hope
yeah,
Reimagined Rooted, and that's the funnest part about school. If you ask me, you create pieces of you bring you, other people bring them, and then you create this melting pot of just amazingness for that community. Um, Susan, I'm definitely going to be reaching out for more pillar talks.
yeah.
We could talk for hours. This has been a fun little conversation, and this will also be on our new Spotify under the Evolution Podcast, on YouTube, inside the classroom at Evergreen Foundations. Make sure you go check out, if you're on Skool, check out Hope Reimagined Rooted, and anything Susan Andrien touches, in my opinion, is peaceful. And I just love it. I'm here for
Can I
everything
do
you
one
do.
last plug
Yeah,
before we head off? I
absolutely.
am
And I have another
leading
question.
Yeah, I'm leading a retreat in March called Rooting Resilience in Occidental California at the Alliance of the Redwoods Conference Center. There are accommodations there. It's 2 nights, 3 days, and forest bathing and nature connection is a huge part of it, but it's also really focused on this healing and wellness. And so it's a small retreat. It's only max 20 people, so it will be a very intimate experience.
Nice.
And it's the very first one that Hope Reimagined has offered. So I'm really, really excited about. So if the things
Amazing.
I've been talking about sound like
Yeah,
they serve you and that you're excited about them, you can find out more. Um, I'll be doing another information session, and you can also find out about them on my website, which is hopereimagined.org. There's the link to register for the retreat.
that's amazing. I'm glad you plugged that. And I am actually going to plant the seed. The great Dr. Melissa Parteka is watching this, and she is a part of Evergreen Foundations. We have talks of retreats at her property in the Midwest and Michigan, in person
Ah,
foundations retreats. And I think you need to get your butt to the Midwest sometime. See,
yeah, I was born in Michigan. I'm
oh,
from
nice. So was
Massachusetts.
I.
I mean, I grew up in Massachusetts, but my dad was worked for Corning, and he was moved every year. So I was born in Albion, Michigan.
Oh, okay, I know where that is. I was born in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I am a Youper, and Melissa currently lives in, I'm not even gonna guess, Lower Michigan.
Lower Michigan.
Um, so we've been asking all of our guests in the summit a final question, and I decided I wasn't gonna ask the same one for Pillar Talks and
Yeah.
for the podcast style. So I actually came up with one on the fly today while we were talking. That is gonna be the new question I ask everybody, and
All right.
you kind of inspired it. So, Susan, thank you so much for joining me today. What is one change that you would like to see in the world?
This is there's a lot of changes I would like to see, but
Just one.
I think one of the things that I think is really rooting a lot of challenges that we're having is the ability to have more nuanced conversations about the complexity of things rather than really just pulling us into a binary divided thing, but to be able to have complex conversations that sees nuance in the situation and critical thought. Like if we're able to show up even to the things that we care about and our side of whatever side we're talking about, if we're able to engage critically I with love, then I think things would be better.
Perfect ending to this. Amazing answer. And I'm going to stick with that question for all these pillar talks because you killed it with that. Thank you, Susan, so
Thank
much.
you.
And we'll catch you later, Foundations.